What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where my good friend Brian and I talk about comic books that have been adapted into streaming shows and movies. Star Wars, of course, has been a movie, a set of streaming shows, comic books, any kind of media. Star Wars has been in it in some form. So today we are talking about the streaming show Ahsoka. Episode 6 just dropped, Far, Far Away. So, Brian, what'd you think about that title for this episode?
I thought it was a nice little nod.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of little in jokes that they were making in the conversation in the beginning was a nice little touch, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that being, Huang and Ahsoka are talking, and they're talking about old Jedi lessons or texts, and Ahsoka mentions likening volumes 1, 2, and 3. And then he starts off by telling a story saying a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. So perfect, right before the title pops up, right? And
yes.
It says episode 6. So you mentioned that they said, there's 3 different parts of this story, and Ahsoka says, I always liked part 1 the best. And I think that was very ambiguous because I think that's like a little wink. Like, oh, it's Star Wars. It could be like the trilogies. It could be like part 1 of one of the trilogies. How'd you take it?
I took it as the prequels, honestly, because that's the characters that she would be most relevant towards, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But I could absolutely see how it could be construed as the original trilogy from the 70s and 80s, because that came first.
Right. And I think the exact same thing, actually, right? Because it's like she's a prequel character. But yeah. I think for us, the original trilogy is our favorite, right?
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, hands down.
It's funny. Brian and I just shared a little, Twitter message fest before we were talking about how much we dislike Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, and how much we both like The Last Jedi.
Yes.
But yeah, and
it was nice talking to you guys who just turned off this video. Right? See you later.
I mean, does anybody like Rise of Skywalker, though, at all? Like, anybody? Is there anybody out there that actually likes the movie a lot?
Okay, so there's this one dude on Twitter I always see, right? And I don't remember how I found him, but he is always pushing for a Solo sequel, right? He's always like, Solo, bring back Solo, # Solo sequel.
I would watch that. I'm not going to lie.
So, I mean, I think we are getting a kind of a form of that. Have you heard the news about
Lando? Lando being turned into a movie, yes.
Yes. I feel like I'm very loud today. I feel like I'm like shouting this Star Wars news at you.
Well, you have a lot of gusto.
I know when I talk about how much I dislike Rise of Skywalker, it's pretty strong. I got a lot of gusto. But so the Solo news, if you guys don't know, is that essentially there's going to be a Lando movie now that's in development.
Yes, it was being developed as a TV show, but it's now being turned into a movie, and obviously it's going to have the return of Donald Glover as a younger Lando.
Yes. And then there's some other Glover guy that's working with him. Is his brother?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't heard that part.
Whoever Stephen Glover is, he's also working on the movie. I think it's his brother.
Maybe.
Yes. So, all right. Anyway, I'm all scatterbrained right now. The guy that likes the Rise of Skywalker, though, he said that the best trailer for the entire series, he tweeted this like 2 days ago, is the Rise of Skywalker trailer. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I do remember at the time when I went before seeing Rise of Skywalker, I was very down on The Last Jedi, but my eyes were opened afterwards. I just one day revisited, gave it another shot, and I realized that yes, this is the best movie of the sequel trilogy. Yeah. But I don't particularly remember that trailer in particular.
It's really good. It kind of has quotes from different characters, and I don't know. You just have to see it. But like, the sequel trilogy as a whole, the more I look on it, I'm like, oh, it had a lot of potential. They never were able to make it its own thing, like its own unique thing. As much as people might rag on the prequels, everything that we're watching right now, talking about Ahsoka, it was like spawned out of that prequel trilogy,
Yes, but at the same time, that's going back 20 years now, and the sequel trilogy is newer. I mean, yes, we have the pre-sequel trilogy stuff kind of going on, which you can argue right now with Mandalorian and even the show Ahsoka. There are still rumors of a Rey movie coming as well. So, I mean, I don't think that era is over. And, I mean, the prequel trilogy was kind of like a joke for quite a long time, honestly. People kind of turned around on it, I think. But, I didn't even see Revenge of the Sith in the theater. I saw Attack of the Clones like 2 months after.
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was just not I was not hyped about it back then. But I look back now with, I guess, more nostalgia, and now that they've done all this extra stuff, and it seems better now. So it's very possible that could happen with the sequel trilogy down the line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still don't like the prequels, really. I like all the lore and stuff they built out of it, the books, like the TV show, obviously, and now this show. But I even think that Revenge of the Sith is a little difficult to watch. There are parts of Revenge of the Sith that are great, but as a whole, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we got to get through this part. Whereas the original trilogy, there's no part like that. I'm excited to see every part.
Have you ever watched that cut? I want to say it was actually Topher Grace that did it.
Oh, boy.
That cut together all three of the prequel into one movie?
No, I have not. There's one cut that starts off with like the lightsaber battle with like Darth Maul. It's like the first.
Yeah, essentially they completely cut out the Phantom Menace with the exception of like the Duel of Fates. Mm-hmm. Everything else is pretty much cut. But
that's cool.
It honestly kind of works. Like, it takes the best parts, it cuts out the parts that don't work. It's still a little long because it's probably like 3 hours, but it works. I think there are really good things that came out of those, but I think out of the prequel trilogy. But I think the first one is a little too long and boring, but there are some great characters in there, and I do think 3 is the best of them overall.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's flawed as well. But I do think there's good things there, and maybe it's just nostalgia. I don't know.
No, it's okay. Yeah, because that's the thing is that there's a whole generation. I think I've probably said this like 15 fucking times on this channel, but there's a whole generation of people that like that's their Star Wars trilogy.
Yep.
Yep. And so I kind of honestly feel like my Star Wars trilogy is the original trilogy kind of morphed in with the expanded universe stuff. And boy, was this episode a fucking treat for someone like me.
Yes.
So what's your experience with Thrawn prior to this show?
I think I might have read one of the novels, the Timothy Zahn novels.
Yeah.
I had very few of them.
Okay.
And I definitely didn't read an entire trilogy. I just found them somewhere and I read them and that was it. Like I didn't do too much together, but I'm aware of the character. I had like a bunch of like Star Wars character encyclopedias and stuff, and he was prominent there. And I always thought he looked cool. He sounded cool. I do remember him a little bit from that one book. So, but my experience is not from Rebels like some people have seen.
Yes. Well, for Thrawn, I think I might have read a little bit of Heir to the Empire, but I know that everything happens in that story. I know everything that happens in that story. I have not seen him in Rebels. I've heard people talking about him like crazy. Like some Star Wars fans that are into the stuff, the expanded universe stuff, they just like always talk about Thrawn. He's like definitely top 5 favorite like expanded universe characters for many people.
Yeah,
like, usually number 1 favorite character.
Yeah, it's usually Thrawn or Mara Jade.
Yeah, Mara Jade, Thrawn, right. And Timothy Zahn is just such a fucking fantastic writer. I don't think I've actually read any of his Star Wars novels straight through, but one of my very favorite books is The Icarus Hunt, which he wrote. That's in my top 5. And then there's like this whole Conquerors trilogy that he wrote that's so good. He's such a great writer, and he's so good at like military science fiction, where it just like makes it so believable and real. And Thrawn is such a dynamic character from what I've kind of experienced with him or read about him. He was voiced by Mads Mikkelsen's brother, Lars Mikkelsen, right?
Yes.
And I've seen him on other things, like he was on House of Cards and stuff. But, obviously he's Thrawn in this live action show. I was so excited by this episode. I actually went and got the Thrawn audiobook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. And it's cool because the narrator, they have like one narrator for all the Star Wars books, and he does such a great job. He does all these different voices. He puts a lot of emotion into it, and he sounds the way Thrawn sounds on the show.
Nice. It's not Lars Mikkelsen, is it?
It's not. It's some dude. I wish I had his name pulled up because he's so good. And the cool thing about Star Wars audiobooks is that they have like the music playing during the narration, and like there's sound effects and shit.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So it'd be like a droid came in the room and they'll be like, you know.
But the amount of work that must go into those.
Oh yeah, it's like a fucking movie or something, or like an audio drama.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: like seeing him in this episode, what'd you think, man? What was your impression?
I thought it was great. I thought the intro with the kind of the dark stormtroopers. Looking all like bandaged and horrifying, and there's chanting Thrawn, Thrawn, Thrawn.
Yeah,
it was a pretty good entrance.
Yeah,
it was very imposing. I think it was a worthy entrance for his first live action appearance.
Yeah, one of the best things about him is that he's just very logical and very methodical. He's not like this over emotional guy, and he's not like Palpatine or somebody that's always talking about like emotions and being all dark. And so he's just like very by the books. This is what's going to get us our victory kind of person. He's an incredible tactician. And I think that they show that in this episode. Like he obviously has like personal feelings or hatred towards Sabine and like the Rebels crew, but he's just very much like, okay, you can go look for Ezra if you want.
Yeah, he's just he pushes all that hate down to kind of further what his plan is. He's like, I kind of want to see them dead if they do or not. Really, the only thing I care about right now is getting out of here.
Yes,
that's what I want to do. But
yes,
I also hate them in a very calm manner.
Yeah, he's almost like a Vulcan, and his whole race, they're called the Chiss, and they come from a part of the Star Wars galaxy that's, I believe it's called Wild Space, where it's not really explored, but like people know it exists. So like I personally felt like this episode felt more like a Star Wars movie than the other episodes. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was thinking like, why isn't this one put in the theater?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I really liked it. It definitely felt it felt a lot darker in the first half of it, but you did have that kind of lighter Star Wars moment when Sabine's traveling the planet and she just runs into those little what did you call them in the notes? I forgot.
I called them like hermit crab aliens.
Hermit crabs, yeah. I kept thinking Ninja Turtles because their backs look like shells, but
yeah,
like Star Wars Ninja Turtles.
That works, yeah. That works too.
But you kind of got vibes of like Ewoks or other little Jawas or little creatures that populate the Star Wars universe. So it kind of touched upon aspects of Star Wars different aspects of Star Wars that I like.
Yeah. For this show, I've talked about this many times, how it seems like there's a lot of like sort of just dragging things out, or like things could be edited or cut quicker. And even when they showed their village, it felt like, okay, well, they've shown quite a few establishing shots of like, here's a hermit crab guy working on a roof, and here's a hermit crab guy turning slowly and looking at Sabine, right? But there's something about how they were portrayed that it was like very endearing and charming. And so I'm like, it's okay. Take your time on the hermit crab people. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because they're essentially their prey. They're preyed upon on this planet, and it's that's kind of endearing that they're kind of just trying to survive.
Yes, they're kind of like those fucking yellow shell guys from Mega Man.
Oh yeah, with the little bucket head. Yeah.
They're like drop down. Yes. What'd you think of the rat kind of dog mount thing?
The howler.
The howler.
Yeah, I don't know. They always mention that there's ties with Ezra and wolves, so I kind of got that vibe. You saw three of them howling in the background in one establishing shot, and then there's actually three of them being ridden in the episode by Sabine and then Balin and Shinhati. Yeah, and they were cool enough. I thought it was a little weird. It was a little odd that after the one Sabine's one ran off, and then it was like she was kind of like joking, like, no, you abandoned me. It was a little jokey. It still felt like Star Wars.
Yeah.
It almost like how Luke talks about the talks of the droids in A New Hope, I would say, sort of.
Yeah.
That was a little. That was like a little jarring because I felt that prior to that the episode was very dark.
Yeah.
But still, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that cute thing. I mean, you say it kind of reminds me of Luke and the Droids. For me, it kind of reminded me of like Leia and Wicket on like Endor when she meets Wicket for the first time, And it's that kind of cute thing that like, okay, we're making these to sell toys kind of thing. And that makes me think of Star Wars. It makes me feel Star Wars, especially that kind of thing where there's a human person saying something and then there's a creature just kind of having a reaction. And then the human person has to essentially like talk for the creature. Like they do it with Chewbacca all the time.
Oh yeah, Han and Chewie is a prime example of that.
Yeah. But I liked it. It's a nice world building. It kind of reminded me of that creature that Obi-Wan rides when he goes to fight Grievous.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know what that's called, but yeah.
Right, exactly. There's totally like a Star Wars fan right now that's like, it's called an Enchanda. You guys don't know shit. Here's the Wikipedia. Right. But you keep talking about how like the episode was dark, and I love that because God, I talk about Twitter so much in this fucking show, but like there was this dude pointing out how all the sort of Mando era, sequel era stuff is like dark and like horror movie-esque. Did you see that tweet by any chance?
I don't think so. But I mean, I did get the horror vibe I got was from the stormtroopers and then the Thrawn's entrance.
Yes.
And maybe a little bit too of just the idea of this kind of like lawless planet where bandits prowling everywhere. That kind of too. It seems like a threatening place. But I don't think I saw the tweet. No.
Okay. So you mean you didn't see this tweet from this random person on my timeline?
I did not. No.
Out of the millions of people that are on Twitter tweeting about Star Wars? Okay. That's weird. No, it was cool because he had images from like the sequel movies and then from the shows, and he showed like Snoke's like clones in a tube, and he showed like the kind of the Imperials that were meeting at the end of the Mandalorian last season, and then of course he showed like Thrawn's troopers. I think they're called Shadow Troopers, I believe. And then he showed Palpatine like kind of resurrected. And the point he was trying to make with this tweet is that this sort of like post-Empire, like Imperial, the forces are basically, they're using everything they can to regain power, and they have to use like really dark things, like kind of genetic experimentation and cloning. They use like the dark side of the Force, dark magic, the Night Sisters,
Yeah, the Night Sisters definitely embody that kind of dark magic feel.
Yeah. And dude, I'm telling you, I love this fucking episode so much that like I started watching the Clone Wars show and like really watching like every single fucking episode, and I got right up to the Night Sisters part. It's really juicy.
Awesome. I still have not continued beyond that first episode in that Ahsoka playlist on Disney Plus.
Oh, well, you got a busy.
I'll do it at some point.
Yeah. All right, well, in the part that I'm up to right now on the show, it's in season 3. And they brought in this guy that is like Darth Maul's brother. Have you ever seen him?
I'm not sure.
His name, he's got like totally like a fucking Star Wars name. His name is like Savage Opress, right?
Okay.
Like, get a little on the nose there, right? But he's like a Darth Maul, but he's yellow. And you know who voices him?
I do not.
He's voiced by Clancy Brown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Clancy Brown, who's also in the show.
Yes. Yeah, right. That's right. He was in the beginning of the show. Yeah. So it's really good, if you get a chance to watch it. But they show the Night Sister culture, and we learned a lot about them in this episode too, right?
Yes, with those. Oh my God, what do they call those 3 priestesses? Thrawn kept addressing one of them as the.
Oh fuck! I have it written down. It's like something mother, right?
Like the grand. That's not grandmother. That doesn't sound right.
Yes, thank you, grandmother.
Something mother.
The what mother?
Something mother. I don't know.
Yes. Night Sisters. Yeah. We might have to look it up. But yeah, like they go to that planet Peridia, which is the planet that the Night Sisters are from. And can you kind of clarify things for me? Because they were basically saying that like the space whales go there to die, right?
Yeah, because the one of the establishing shots when they get there is just this space graveyard of space whale bones.
Right, right.
It was kind of contributed to that dark feeling that you got in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems a little weird. It's like they go back there to die, but why? How do they know that? Why do they go to the other place? Like, what's the deal with that? I guess this was supposed to be something you don't think too much about.
Right, right.
But they're implying that there's some darkness about this planet and this area and this region of space.
Yeah. When you do watch the Clone Wars part that I'm up to with the Night Sisters and Asajj Ventress, you know her though, right?
Yes, I know Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, yeah. She is one of the Night Sisters too.
Oh my, yeah. Wow, I didn't even pick up on that shit.
Yeah, yeah. She was Night Sister, and then she got sold off.
She was originally created in that original Clone Wars cartoon, though, right?
That's right.
Okay, that I did watch all the way through. I mean, it's only like 20 minutes in total, but
yeah, yeah. But that was a freaking awesome cartoon.
Of course it was. That was the best thing about the prequels at the time.
Yes, yes. It was made by that guy who made like Samurai Jack, right?
Yeah, Gennady Tartakovsky, and yeah.
Yeah. So like what do you call it? She's one of those Night Sisters, and they show their rituals and stuff, and it really does feel like it's this sort of magic and not really the Force. It feels like very loosely tied to the Force. And so for me, I was thinking, is it possible that like this other galaxy is a galaxy that's much more like tilted towards the dark side?
It's possible, and honestly, I think what ties into that a lot is actually my favorite thing about the episode, which was again Baylan Skoll. I am so intrigued by what his goals are.
Yeah,
he keeps talking about and we find out that he was raised in the Jedi Temple. He was there for Order 66, I suppose. He was young then, and he's part nostalgic for it, but he also just wants to kind of end the cycle. And I'm curious what he's looking for here. He says something is calling to him.
Yes.
And he wants to just end something. I mean, is this like, are they trying to say that this is where the Force originates or something like that? And does he want to end the Force? I mean, I feel like this is like crazy fantasy booking, and this is not actually going to be what it is. But that idea, like that thought popped in my head, and I'm like that sounds awesome. You know, that sounds like a Jonathan Hickman kind of thing or something.
Yes. That's so funny. I saw a tweet too. I'm still fucking talking about Twitter. I saw a tweet, speaking of which, because you and I were tweeting about Jonathan Hickman taking over Ultimate Spider-Man, bringing it back. Yes. And somebody was like, here's a preview of what Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man is going to be like. And it was like one of those like designs that he made, but it's like, the house.
Avengers, right?
Right. Well, it was like, the house that they have for like the Summers family.
Oh, yeah. The infographics for the Krakoan era, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like all these different weird cubes to be their rooms. And it's like, this is Peter's room, and this is the kitchen, and this is Aunt May's bedroom. It was funny. I'm sure it's really interesting for people that are watching our Star Wars video. Yeah. But no, I like the idea of being ambitious with Star Wars. And I feel like they always kind of err on the side of it always like, it's like, we're going to take the least risky approach. You know, like Lord and Miller, who made, the original Spider-Verse, and they made so many interesting movies and funny movies. They were going to make Solo at first, and they got fired.
Yes.
And I feel like if history had gone a different way, if maybe they had made their version of Solo, I wonder what would have happened with our Star Wars fan base.
Yeah, I always wonder about that movie because I feel like this is probably the same thing that happened with like
Ant-Man.
Oh my god, I can't remember his name. With Edgar Wright and Ant-Man.
Yes.
Just these people wanted to put their creative spin on it. They wanted to do it their way, but Disney wants them to do this thing where it's connected and it can set up other things, and they have to control where certain characters end up at the end, and that kind of where it clashed. Yeah. I mean, they made it seem that like the tabloids and made it seem like they were trying to make it too funny, which I don't know if that sounds right. I feel like this was probably a situation where they wanted to do their own thing, put their own stamp on it and have it be as this standalone thing, and that was not flying with Disney, who wanted to replicate, replicate the success of the MCU and all that interconnectedness, shared universe stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate because I feel like they shouldn't replicate the MCU at all. But I mean, that is the part that makes this show kind of more interesting, or makes like everything that's been on Disney Plus has been just kind of like lukewarm, with the exception of Andor, right? And yeah. Yeah, there you go. But the part that makes it even remotely exciting is like, oh, how does this tie in? Is this going to kind of build up the sequel trilogy? Like, that's the exciting part. But the actual, like, what we're seeing, this episode to me was like the first time in this show, it's like, oh, something exciting is kind of happening. What are they going to do? I got excited this time, you know?
Yeah.
I was excited last episode when, like, you got these cool little shots of, like, Anakin kind of turning into Vader and back and forth. But in general, I was just kind of like, okay, well, that's
that's more retrospective, like it's what could happen is, that's just showing another view into the past. It's not really adding as much as it you think. Yeah. But what their other stuff they're doing here is adding to a spot that's still kind of like there's still a gap. There's still a gap between this time period and the beginning of the sequel trilogy. So, and I say often that, somehow Palpatine returned is the worst line in Star Wars, the worst thing in Star Wars, period. Yeah. And I'm expecting at some point I'm going to eat those words because they're going to build up to be something cool at some point. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope they do, but maybe this next to that, who knows?
Yeah. I think that they actually have explained in like books and shit how Palpatine did come back. But the thing about Star Wars is that the movies always take precedent. And I'm assuming that the streaming shows are like right under the movies. And then like books and comics are underneath that. So they can always contradict whatever's been established.
Yes.
But let's see, we're kind of jumping around a little bit. Just going back to that point of like, like playing it safe and stuff like that. This introduction of Thrawn and the way that they did it, this was an example of doing something that, based upon the way that it was filmed and presented, it was at least exciting. Like even if this was just like a fucking commercial for like Star Wars Legos or something, and like just his Star Destroyer showing up in that tower and then like kind of coming over them, and it had this great blend of kind of the sound effects and the soundtrack, almost like where you couldn't tell which one was which,
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I know you didn't see Dune, but have you seen Blade Runner 2049?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember there's a scene where like there's these like replicant prostitutes and they're walking over to where like what Ryan Gosling is?
Yes. How do you forget the scene with the replicant prostitutes?
Right. Well, there's this part when you follow them walking in the streets of LA and there's this noise in the background. And it's like you sit there and you're like, wait, is this the fucking soundtrack or is this like some kind of random like car noise or something that's in this street? And that's what it felt like with this ship, where it's like, wait, is this the ship making the noise or is this like the soundtrack?
Yeah, but either way, it sounded good. It felt you felt it. That's
right.
Something good.
Right. It was ominous, and then like just what's so great about fucking Thrawn is that he just reacts differently than all the other fucking Star Wars villains that we've seen on these streaming shows, except Andor. Andor is always the fucking exception.
Yeah.
But like everybody else is just kind of like, oh, I'm maniacal. I'm gonna do this. It's like, who gives a shit? You're so boring. You're not fucking Darth Vader or Palpatine. And now Thrawn is something different.
Yeah, he gives off that kind of serious, logical vibe that he, and it kind of inspires his own confidence, and you think he can actually succeed. Like sometimes a villain, you can believe that they can accomplish what they want, and he gives off that vibe.
Really great fucking point. And he's got those crazy troopers that you've referenced a couple of times, and he's got the one lead trooper with the weird fucking mask.
Yeah, that looked cool too. Enoch, which I believe is an original character for this show. But yeah, that's a very striking mask. I was instantly curious about what was going on there. His voice sounded all creepy and shit. So I mean, he's definitely a zombie.
Yes, yes. And so he's not Mephisto?
He's not Mephisto, no.
Okay. But that's what it's going to be like. A lot of people are going to be theorizing who he is.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think he's just a stormtrooper, and he just happens to be the leader, just to give another character, to be along with Thrawn in exile.
Yeah. Someone made a comment on that on Twitter. Every time I say on Twitter, take a shot, and you'll be fucking drunk real quick. But they're like, they have to have a character that is like the straight man that Thrawn can just say exposition to. That's what they said.
So everybody needs a kind of like a second in command.
Yeah. So, and there's 2 episodes left. How do you think this is going to play out with Thrawn and Baylan?
Is there 8 or isn't there 9?
Oh, I thought it was 8. I
thought it was 9.
Okay, I gotta look that shit up right now.
Oh God, here we go. Here's the exciting part for anybody listening or watching.
I'm pretty sure it's 8, man. Maybe I could look on Twitter.
It's 8. Okay, I don't know why I thought it was 9.
Yeah, but dude, we have a lot coming up, right? We have Doom Patrol coming back now. We have Generation B.
So that'll be October. But I mean, the next closest things are Loki and Gen V.
Gen V, yeah, man.
Oh wait, no, Loki's November. Never mind.
Yeah, but they're all going to just be like,
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so then what do you think, though? Like, what's going to happen with Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati?
That's a good question. I don't know. With 2 episodes left, it's like they just kind of introduced the big bad. Ahsoka hasn't even met them yet. I honestly don't know what happens in the rest of this series here, or how this ends. I mean, I know we're setting up some kind of combined movie to end off this kind of little Mandoverse. And I really don't know what to expect here. I hope it is somewhat satisfying, because I know it's not going to be an actual ending.
Right. Because isn't there even talk of like an Ahsoka season 2?
I have not heard that at all. But I mean, so far I'm enjoying this show more than most of the other things. Andor is the exception. I don't say most, because I like the Mandalorian too. Yeah, it's really just Obi-Wan though, and Boba Fett that was bad.
Yeah.
But I would put that higher up so far. So, I mean, I would watch season 2 of this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, actually, we didn't even talk about Ezra.
That's right. Ezra shows up.
What do you think of the interaction? Sabine, one of the things that's been consistent in the show is Sabine so desperate to find Ezra, to get Ezra back, and they finally interact. Did you feel like that was worth it?
Honestly, her motivation for going with Baylan and giving him the map was one of the most interesting things about the show so far. So finally get to see, she finally accomplishes her goal. And it's funny how she's just kind of sitting there, wants to enjoy the moment, because she knows that when she tells him all the shit that's going on, he's going to be real pissed.
Yeah. She's like, we'll get to that later. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, Ron's about to get out of here. We're going to get stranded. But let's just enjoy the moment.
So you think he's been like hanging out with those hermit crab people for just like 10
sounds like
years?
Something the Jedi would do, just protecting the weak,
Yeah.
What's he gonna do? I mean, there's nowhere to go really there. Clearly Thrawn wants him dead.
Yeah.
For getting him stranded there, but he just hasn't been able to find him. So he's just chilling out wherever he can.
Yeah. I think I can't remember if it's that he's been there for 10 years or if he's been there for 5 years. I think
I want to say it was 10 years.
10
but
years?
I could be wrong.
Yeah, because like Rebels takes place like I think like maybe right up to New Hope, and then like it's a couple of years from New Hope to Jedi, and then this show is 5 years after Jedi. So
maybe it's more like 15.
Yeah, I'm definitely
15.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning away from 5. But so yeah, he's just been hanging out with these hermit crab people for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm digging the show. I look forward to watching the next 2 episodes. I mean, especially since they've introduced Thrawn. If you do get a chance to check out the audiobook, I highly recommend it. Was there
just called Thrawn?
It's just called Thrawn, the first one. Yeah. And there's like 5 fucking books. There's like Thrawn, like Alliances, Thrawn Traitor or something like that. And there's one called Star Wars Thrawn Ascendancy.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's cool because like one of them has like Anakin, I think, on the cover, and then another one has like Darth Vader on the cover with Thrawn. So I like that kind of stuff.
Interesting. I wonder if there's any comics with him in it too, from the newer Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm. There is a comic book adaptation of the first Thrawn book that I'm listening to.
Oh, maybe I'll go buy that.
Good. I actually read it and I was like, oh, it's not that good. Like sometimes with these Star Wars comics, they're not written as well as you would like them to be.
Yes, I think it's not easy to adapt something into a comic book, which is this whole thing. I think it's easier to adapt a comic book into something else.
Yeah,
because it is a condensed medium. You have to kind of show a lot, but you have a very limited space.
Yes, except
you have to break it up.
Unless you're British and you're writing Transformers.
Yeah.
Then you can. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are good Star Wars comics too that in the modern comics, especially like the Darth Vader comic. Speaking of British and speaking of people like Transformers, Kieran Gillen was awesome writing the Darth Vader comic, and Charles Soule is very good at writing Star Wars comics too.
Yeah, I think I have some of those in my Comixology account, and I also heard that oddly, is it Charles Soule? Somebody wrote a Lando miniseries. It's supposed to be really good.
That is really good, and it is Charles Soule.
Okay.
Yes, and good job, man, helping me bring it back to comic books. You know, our show's called Comic Books Transformed.
Yes.
It's good to reference them a little bit. Yeah, cool. Well, unless you have anything else you want to say about Ahsoka, we can call it a wrap.
No, I'm good. I'm good for next week. Excited to see what comes next.
Me too, my man. Okay, guys. So we appreciate you guys. It looks like you guys have been like following us. Like we've gained some more viewers and stuff. That's awesome. Welcome. Please feel free to comment too. And if you haven't yet, you make sure you subscribe, and we can always use a like. Thanks, y'all. See you.